Welcome to JLive. I'm JArt's Executive Director, Laura Mandel, and it's great to be with you for JLive, our series of virtual cultural experiences that bring us together to explore and celebrate the diverse world of Jewish art, culture, and creative expression. We're bringing you bite-sized conversations with the best Boston area talent. So before we start, please forgive us for any technical difficulties today. I think school coming back means that Zoom is having some trouble. If the camera freezes or anything like that, please know that we will re-record and send out an email after, so please don't fret. So today, I'm very excited to be with Judaica artist Frann Addison. We are kindred spirits in collecting junk and in metalsmithing, and I'm excited to share her clever and beautiful work. If you have questions during the conversation, please share them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we will answer as many of the questions as time allows. So welcome, Frann.
Thank you, Laura. Great to be here.
Great to be with you in your studio. So before we talk a little bit more, can you show us some of your work? I know you have some slides for us.
Absolutely. Yes. So the first slide has to do with tzedakah. Tzedakah, which is an important part of Judaism. It's translated as meaning justice and righteousness, but commonly it's thought of as philanthropy. So this is a tzedakah box for donations for philanthropy. And for the past many years, the Jewish Federation of New York has commissioned me to do their donor appreciation gifts. On this piece, this was made for the philanthropist Charles Bronfman. And when I do a donor gift, I like to personalize it. I learned that Bronfman is from Canada. He was born in Montreal. He now lives in New York, and he is passionate about Israel. So I incorporated a Canadian quarter, 2 Israeli coins, and a New York State quarter. I sought out a map of Israel, which I soldered to the metal, and then I cut a slit into the map of Israel, which is to symbolize that when you put your donations into the box, your donations are going directly into Israel. And at the bottom, I have sought out the Hebrew word tzedakah from the metal. So it's
and I think it's such a gorgeous example of your work with all of the layers of meaning and how technically beautiful it is.
Oh, thank you. I had fun doing it. It really is fun to personalize a piece for the recipient. So the next slide, these are 2 Kiddush cups. So I love to incorporate found objects and antique elements. So I'm, ever since I was young, I was a collector going to flea markets and yard sales, antique shops. I'm still doing that. And in these pieces, I incorporated salt and pepper shakers. These are vintage depression glass salt and pepper shakers that I used for the stems of each of these Kiddush cups. So what I did was I removed the shaker top and did the metal work above and below. On the base of each of the Kiddush cups, I've sawn out the Hebrew part of the blessing, Borei Peri Hagafen, along with a cluster of grapes. And the Kiddush cup on the right, actually, the cup part, I got in an antique shop, and I believe it might have been a toothpick holder. I'm not really sure about that, but I love the shape of it and the burgundy on the top of the glass, complementing the burgundy stem of the Kiddush cup. So each of these pieces is unique. Well, the one on the right is unique. The one on the left I could repeat because I got a pair of salt and pepper shakers. So I do have the complementary shaker to that blue, cobalt blue stem.
Frann, what a brilliant way to use old items and family heirlooms and things and repurpose them with whole new life.
I do have fun. And you mentioned family heirlooms. and I have had people give me their own family heirlooms to do something with, to incorporate into a new piece, to still give it meaning. And that I find a fun challenge.
You're giving me ideas.
Oh, good. Great.
All right, what's next? Oh, gorgeous.
So these are spice boxes. So on Saturday evening, the end of the Sabbath, there's the Havdalah ceremony, which there are 3 parts, one of which is the inhaling of fragrant spices. And it's said that one of the reasons is the Sabbath has ended, the work week is starting, so you're kind of saddened that you have to go back to work. So inhaling fragrant spices sort of renews you at that thought. The spice box on the left, I made where I incorporated a clear lucite napkin holder, and I drilled holes in it. It has cloves in the middle. And then I did the metal work around it. The actual stem on that spice box was a miniature brass candle holder for children. And then I did the other metal work, and that piece echoes the original, or some of the original spice boxes, which were in the tower form, which echoed the architecture of the medieval cities. And today you still see many of the tower form spice boxes. But the spice box on the right, I was influenced or inspired by nature, by flowers being fragrant. So on this spice box, there are no found objects. I completely formed that from to look like a flower. And behind the flower, which you can't see, is a brass tube through into which you put the spices. And then you hold it and you smell it like a flower. So, so sometimes, as you see on the left, I make pieces where I incorporate found objects, whereas on the right, sometimes I make them completely from scratch.
Beautiful.
These are also spice boxes. And so, as I mentioned, sometimes I'm inspired by nature. Sometimes I'm inspired by different cultures. And the piece on the left is actually Japanese. It's enamel cloisonné, and it's called an Inro. And the Japanese, when they would wear their kimonos, they had no pockets. So they needed a little kind of a purse to hold their small objects. And it's called an Inro, and it the cord slipped around their obi, which was the sash that went around their waist. Sometimes it just had one compartment, sometimes multi-compartments, and I really love the form of it. So I used that form to inspire my spice box, which I made completely from the metal. Instead of the cord, which is in the Japanese piece, I used a silver chain. I hand pierced the Hebrew word basamim, which is spices, from the box. And I made the silver bead as well. And what you do during the ceremony is you would pick up the bead and pass this from person to person, and the fragrance comes through the open letters that I have cut out. So that's how that spice box is used.
So perfectly symbolic and practical.
Yeah, it's fun to do, and I love the inspiration. So as I mentioned, I love combining found objects. Ever since I was young, I would make collages and assemblages from things that I would pick up off the ground or find at the seashore. And the photo on the left is just a little peek into what I call my cabinet of curiosities. Just odds and ends that I have found at flea markets, antique shops, that I will use for some future creation. Sometimes I know when I see a piece what I plan to do with it. Sometimes I just think it has potential and I get it and stick it in my cabinet. And the photo on the right shows a bunch of my clock gears and clock parts. I love using gears and clock parts for several of my pieces, and hopefully I'll get a chance to show you one of them.
Absolutely.
Oh, a collection of dreidels. I have so many customers who actually collect dreidels. I have a couple of customers who have 600 or 700 of them. So they're always expecting something new and different. I have on the left I call it my checkered dreidel, where I incorporate guitar picks. I have the mahjong with the mahjong tiles, and one with abalone shells that when you spin it, you really get a beautiful kaleidoscope of colors. You get the blues, the greens, the purples of the abalone. And the dreidel on the right, the far right photo, is my Matryoshka dreidel. I use the handle, I made the handle from one of the Russian nesting dolls. And that was fun to do. And then the red below it is enamel, and it's on brass. And actually the tip, which you can't really see underneath, I used the top of one of my salt shakers, which was a brass top. So I ended up using the whole salt shaker, you know, the stem for a Kiddush cup, and the top I used for the base of a dreidel. So nothing goes to waste.
I love it. Fran, you're like a chef. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I so badly want to touch these objects. I love seeing them. Can you take us into the studio and show us some pieces that you have around you now, so we can rotate them and tell us a little more? Great.
Sure. So I don't know, do you see this piece right here that I'm—
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So, this is a tzedakah box, which I made, and I call it Time to Give, because I have incorporated some of the clock and watch parts. This is a repurposed antique pocket watch case, and I sought out a slot in the case for the donations, and then I did some embossing on the sides.
Would you hold that a little bit closer to the camera, because I can see some detail that I want to make sure everyone can see.
Okay.
Gorgeous.
Okay.
Gorgeous.
And then the top is an antique clock gear, which is removable to empty the donations. So actually the first one of these actually made for the Jewish Federation of New York. I discovered that the donor collected, the honoree collected antique clocks and watches. So that's how I came up with the idea to incorporate the clock parts. And then I thought, you know, I like the idea of time to give. So I have since made several more, all a little bit different, with different clock parts and different embellishments.
Gorgeous. And there's such a whole other Jewish story there with the time. I love it.
Thank you. I also have a time to spin dreidel. And that's a dreidel that I make from a clock gear.
Oh, amazing. So if anybody watching needs Hanukkah gifts, now is the time. So Fran, I love this. Tell us more about your backstory. How did you come to be a Judaica maker?
I went to graduate school for a Master's of Fine Arts in metalsmithing. And when I was there, my first year in 1977, I happened to read an article in a goldsmithing magazine by a silversmith in New York, Bernard Bernstein, who said he felt there was really a need for contemporary Judaica. Because what was being produced at that time were just reproductions of old pieces that really didn't fit in with modern architecture. I thought that was interesting. I do not come from a really observant background, but I started to do research, and it really drew me right in. I was fascinated. I had never heard of Havdalah till I started doing my research. I ended up writing my master's thesis on the history of Jewish ceremonial objects used in the home. And actually from that research, I put together a lecture slide presentation based on that. But so during the 2 years that I was studying, I created a sterling silver Kiddush cup, a Havdalah spice box, and a mezuzah. And those 3 pieces were in my graduate art show, which was open to the public. And a rabbi happened to come to the show and was, of course, you know, attracted to those 3 pieces and spoke very favorably to me about them. And I thought, you know, maybe I can do something with this. So when I graduated, I started creating Judaica. And in 1980, May Rockland included me in her Jewish Yellow Pages book, and things just sort of mushroomed from there. I did production Judaica for 10 years, which I sold nationally to stores and galleries. But after 10 years, I got very bored because I found that when a store would sell something, they would want to replace it with the same thing. So I was making, you know, the same Hanukkah menorah, the same candlesticks, you know, over and over again. So I took about a 15-year hiatus. I just needed a break. But then I wanted to get back to my Judaica, and I wanted to love my work again. And I decided I would just basically do either one of a kind or limited edition pieces. And I've always loved, since I was a child, making assemblages and constructions. And so now I feel like I am still doing that, only now my constructions and assemblages have meaning and a purpose. And so that's basically my story in a nutshell.
What a perfect story. Everything about it. And I love how you came to your own sense of Judaism through it. I think that's really incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was excited. We are actually running short on time already, but I was excited to see some of your tools and how you actually make these pieces. Would you like to show us a little in your studio?
Sure.
Great.
This is my main workbench over here. My jeweler saw, which I've had for over 40 years, has a very fine blade. This is what I saw out all my metal, whether it's interior cuts or exterior. I do soldering. This is my torch, where I solder on this table here. I actually have a dreidel that I've started, another one with abalone shell.
Nice.
And
gorgeous.
A mezuzah that I've gotten started. And up here is my exhaust fan. When I solder, I get these nasty fumes, so my exhaust takes those fumes to the outside. Keeps me safe.
Sure.
And if we have another quick minute, just to show you around here.
Yeah, please do.
This is my sheet metal shear. So I showed you my jeweler's saw, and it used to be when I would saw out a straight line on a piece of metal, I would have to file it and it would be extra work. Then I got this wonderful piece of equipment. It has a blade like a guillotine that runs the full length. Just to demonstrate, what I did was I made a line on, and easy it is, stay out of the way of the blade. And this is, you get a nice even line. So this is a really old piece of equipment. I've had it for over 40 years. It was old when I got it. But this has gave me a lot of time when I've needed to just have a straight cut.
Great.
So
can I tell you, in art school,
yeah.
one of my favorite classes was when I did small metals, metalsmithing. And one of my favorite things was to chop pieces with the cutter.
As long as your fingers stay out of the way, you're good.
Yeah,
when you do that chop.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, we have some questions for the audience, and I know we are running out of time here. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Someone would love to know, he says, I love your work. Are there any types of Judaica that you would like to make, but you haven't?
Good question. Not that I can think of. You know, I love concentrating on pieces that are used in the home as opposed to the synagogue. But I love the fact that Judaism is largely centered around the family and the home. So I think I pretty well covered all the pieces that are used in the home. And I'm never at a loss for ideas for what to make in those pieces.
Absolutely. Well, and I know if you're anything like me, you already have ideas of things I would love to commission you to make. So I would guess others are thinking that way. Let's see. I'm going to give everybody your website so that they can see some other pieces. And while I do that, would you show us one more piece just to sort of close us out here?
Yep, sure.
And while Fran walks over there, I will tell you she's also on Instagram as Frann Addison Judaica. And I will put that in the chat as well. So go ahead, Fran, show us.
So this is another example of how I use salt and pepper shakers. In addition to stems for Kiddush Cup, this is from vintage salt and pepper shaker, hand painted. Again, I got rid of the top and I made a pair of Shabbat candles. This is brass. And then on the base, with my jeweler saw, I sawed out the Hebrew Shabbat Shalom, Sabbath peace.
It's gorgeous. I love it. I love the look. I love how you recycle things. I think it's pretty special. Well, Fran, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm glad that Zoom seems to have cooperated. If you guys missed anything because of freezing, we'll definitely try to clean it up and report back. But thank you all so much for being here. Of course, as you know, JLive is our series of free programming, and it does not happen without generous support from viewers like you. So if you would like to continue to help make JLive possible, please consider making a donation to JArts. Of course, we have, in addition to JLives coming up in the next couple of weeks with Mia and Nancy Schoen next Monday, we also have a whole upcoming series of JLive events for the fall season that you will all find out about in an email shortly. So thank you, Fran.
You're welcome. Thank you, Laura, for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon.